There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Learn, getting more out of life. Learn, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello and welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and it's great to be joined on the couch as always by Joe Stanley. Hello Joe.
Good to see ya.
Hines is here and
mate.
welcome back to Bianca Chatfield. How are you, Bianca?
Thanks, Das. Good to be back on the couch 2 weeks in a row.
Welcome.
Yes.
Filling in for Rachael Finch, who's taking a short break. Rach is temporarily away from us at the moment, but she wanted to share her story with her great friend Delta Goodrem. So I'm looking forward to that chat coming up on the show soon. But Bianca, where did your travels take you this week?
Well, I went back to nature, Das, and I love indoor plants. They're perfect for styling up any room. Even on set, we've got them. But what I did learn was I'm not the only one in the world that has a knack of killing them.
Oh, no. My house is a plant cemetery. It's terrible. My husband buys them, I kill them.
Oh, yes,
I feel
I'm the
terrible
same.
about that.
Now, Hines, plants are also the inspiration for your brand new cookbook, Eat More Vegan, your 10th cookbook, mate. It's a great effort. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm really pumped to share this with you. It's 100% plant-based, gluten, dairy, refined, sugar-free, packed with real food, basically.
What's left in there?
I know, well, you have to stay tuned because, in fact, I take you behind the scenes of how that book came together.
Yeah, we'll be going behind the scenes of the making of that cookbook later on in the show. But, Joe, summer is only weeks away. Can you believe it? Which means it's the time of the year when skin becomes a focus.
Well, it is the age-old message of skincare in the sun, which has made some serious cut-through. But according to the Cancer Council, 40% of Aussies are still confused about which weather factors cause sunburn. So perhaps people aren't as protected when they need to be.
We used to go camping for 6 weeks every Christmas holidays, live on the beach and the bikes and in the dirt. So we would always put on sun cream, but we probably weren't awesome at reapplying, and we also weren't great at hats and shirts. So I'd noticed a mole that I hadn't seen before on my ankle. Called the dermatologist that I'd seen before for a skin check. She didn't think it looked particularly suspicious. It was basically the colour of my skin, a tiny bit raised. She called about a week later and said I had to come in, and she explained that it was a melanoma in situ and that they recommend complete removal. So after the surgery, they just confirmed that the border had gotten rid of all of the melanoma cells. Since then, I go and get my skin checked every 6 months at the dermatologist.
Possibly the only photos of me ever at the beach.
Lived in Sydney all my life, but never really been a beach person. We'd go to the cinemas, we'd go to the library, because we were dogs. So I never thought in my wildest dreams that I needed to wear any sunscreen or sun protection. Might get sunburnt, you'd have your skin peeling. That's just a rite of passage for most Aussie kids. 2013, I noticed that I had a mole on my left ear. It was right on the lobe and it was ugly. So I went to the doctor. He quickly said, let's take it off and let's go and check it out with a biopsy. It did turn out to be positive for melanoma. What made me upset was that he was quite teary, and that actually brought it really home to me that this is something quite serious. Almost as a last minute thing, my oncologist decided to get an x-ray of my chest. That x-ray picked up the fact that I had a tumour on my ribs. The tumour was the size of a fist and had 3 ribs taken out on my right side at the same time as the tumour, along with all the nerves and muscle in that area. The melanoma had got into my bloodstream or lymphatic system. I get a lot of back pain, chest pain. It's hard to sit. I think the message has to be these days that everyone is at risk of sun damage. Even someone like me, someone who doesn't go to the beach, doesn't go to the pool very often, is at risk because there's all that incidental time that you're in the sun that you don't think about.
joining us from the Cancer Council of Victoria. Please welcome Heather Walker.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Heather, why are Australian skin cancer rates some of the highest in the world?
So in Australia, we have the pretty bad combination of very fair skin population with very high UV. So that's due to the fact that we're pretty close to the equator in Australia. And so those high UV levels mean we really need to be careful with our skin.
But that Sun Smart message has been around for a long time. Are the rates going down of cancer?
Yeah, so we've got some really good news in the under 40 age group particularly, and that seems to be thanks to programs like Sun Smart that have been around since the 80s. So we have this Sun Smart generation for whom melanoma rates are going down. In the older age groups, we've still got some work to do in terms of the fact that we need early detection on the agenda for those age groups, and we also just need to keep the Sun Smart message going because we've got future generations coming through, and it's kind of like brushing your teeth. You don't tell your kids to do it once and expect them to do it every day for the rest of their lives. You know, this is something, as long as the sun's shining in the sky, we need to be vigilant.
And what are some of the most common types of skin cancer? Because, I mean, seeing in that story, Damien didn't even go out in the sun.
So we've got basal and squamous cell carcinomas. They're the common cancers, and there are more than 1 million treatments for those types of cancer in Australia every year. Then we've got melanoma, and that's less common but more deadly. So we've got to be mindful of the fact that there are different types of cancer and they can look different on the skin, and it's really important. Anything looks unusual, go to the doctor, get it checked straight away.
Out.
Look, Instagram is loaded with really tanned people, and although fake tan is becoming more popular, are we a bit of a culture where we want to look bronzed, and is that changing?
I think there's a bit of that. There's definitely the stereotype of the bronzed Aussie, and I think that is a problem in a way. You know, we need to move away from that, and if you really need a tan, then fake it. That's absolutely the best way to go.
Just like I did.
Best tan comes in a bottle.
Like
It
I
absolutely does, because you're not putting yourself at risk of skin cancer that way, you know. From the Cancer Council's perspective, we'd prefer that everyone embrace their natural skin tone, love your skin as it is, but if you have to have a tan, fake it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. Let's just like the skin we were born in, and, you know, I'm pale. Live with it. But would you say, because we hear a lot around vitamin D, and that perhaps we're going too far towards protection from the sun, therefore we're vitamin D deficient, how do we get that balance right?
So that's a really good question, and vitamin D is really important for bone health in particular, but actually it's a bit of a red herring when it comes to sun protection, because in summer the UV levels are so high that it's not something that most Aussies need to worry about.
Right.
There are certain groups, so those who have the darkest skin types, if you cover your skin for cultural or religious reasons, then you might be more at risk, and in which case we'd say chat to your doctor about supplements instead of overexposing your skin, because the UV levels here are so extreme that everyone needs to be careful.
Well, you've got a Sun Smart app. Can you tell us how that works?
Sure. So the SunSmart app is a free to download app that the Cancer Council's developed to help people know when to use sun protection. So one of the big myths is around heat, not UV. People think it's heat that's causing the damage that leads to skin cancer, and it's actually UV radiation from the sun, which you can't see or feel. And so the app just tells you when the UV's high, and so we say whenever it's 3 or above, that's when you should be using sun protection, and also tells you the sun protection times for your location. And in the capital cities as well, there's live UV, so you can actually see what it's doing right now in your location.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Exactly. So that helps you just to know when to use your sun protection.
Heather, thanks for the update and the Sun Smart messages, especially as we head into summer. We appreciate that. Up next, author and burn survivor Churia Pitt adds her voice to the Sun Smart message. That's next on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. We all know the incredible story of Churia Pitt. She's now a mum, a businesswoman, humanitarian, author and motivational speaker. Amongst her many achievements, she's walked the Great Wall of China, the Inca Trail and the Kokoda Track, Bianca.
Yeah, and she did it to raise money for those needing reconstructive surgery in developing countries. And this lady is incredible. And she's also pushing the sunscreen and Sun Smart message. We all had our 50+ sunscreen on as we walked along Sydney's Maroubra Beach. Take a look. What is it about the ocean that you love so much?
I don't really know. I guess I just like being in the surf, being in the water. I find it refreshing, and then, you know, if you're having a bit of a bad day, you get in the water and you feel so much better.
Churia Pitt is resilience personified. Her story of recovery of both mind and body is extraordinary. After suffering the most horrific burns and enduring over 200 surgeries, here she is 8 years later, as bubbly and as positive as ever.
That time in hospital was obviously really challenging for myself and my family. But when I look back at those days now, I actually look back at them with a lot of fondness because they were really tough times for sure. But I think you only understand how resilient you are when you go through those tough times. So I think I learned a lot about myself as well.
Chiria rebuilt her life and is living proof that with the right mindset, you can achieve anything.
In the morning when I wake up, and I try and remind myself that, you know, what an amazing opportunity to get a fresh day, and I think of things that I'm really grateful for in my life. And when I'm in that mindset, it sets up my day in the most positive way. So that's what I try to do.
She juggles her life as an author and public speaker with being a mum to 2-year-old Huckabye.
Huckabye, where's the baby?
And baby number 2 is on its way. I loved your pregnancy announcement too, very Beyonce style. Yeah. Putting it out there, I love it. When are you due? How long do you have to go?
Due next year in February.
How do you think life will change with 2 babies?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think you can worry about it too much. Like, what will be, will be.
Just go with it.
Just go with it.
Yeah. Chiri's injuries haven't stopped her from doing the things she loves most. After all, she is an outdoors kind of girl.
So I remember in hospital, the doctor said, yeah, you won't be able to be outside in the sun. And I thought, oh no, but that's part of my life, that's part of my identity. So I still go outdoors. I go outdoors all the time, every day. I guess I'm just mindful, like we all should be, you know, wearing long sleeve shirts, wearing hats, wearing sunglasses, and then I wear sunscreen, Aven sunscreen.
What is it about the Aven sunscreen that you love so much?
Well, first of all, it's formulated for sensitive skin, so it's great for me. I love how it feels. It's light, it's not greasy, it's got a slightly mattifying effect on my skin, and it's SPF 50+, so it's amazing for people who live in Australia especially.
Why do you choose to affiliate yourself with Aven?
Yeah, I guess back in 2013 I went to France for treatment for my skin and they used the Aven products on me and I just loved how they felt. I loved all of the benefits they gave to my skin, and so when the opportunity came about to work with Aven a little bit closer, I jumped at it. They're such an awesome brand.
If you had one piece of advice that you would give to people about their skin and how to look after it, what would it be?
Yeah, I think we should all drink a lot more water. Water is so beneficial for our skin. Moisturising is so important. I use the Aven Zero Calm Balm and sunscreen. Every time you go outside, you need to have sunscreen on. I guess I really enjoy my life and I just want to make sure other people are enjoying theirs too. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's nothing better, isn't it, when you actually stop and count your blessings?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, to wake up every day grateful for a fresh start. Isn't that a beautiful mindset? No wonder she's such a great motivator and author.
Absolutely. And she just oozed positive vibes. I absolutely love spending time with her. It's hard not to be inspired by her story, but also just how she lives every single day.
How cruisy was her attitude towards baby number 2? Just go with it. That's amazing advice.
You can't believe you could be that tough and that resilient. Just an incredible lady. And speaking of mums-to-be, up next, Gerald has some tips on how to beat morning sickness the natural way. Plus, we road test Hines' new cookbook. That's coming up on the House of Wellness. Welcome back to the House of Wellness. Now, Heinzie, I'm sure you're going to be across all these new wave fermented foods, things like kimchi and kombucha, right down your alley.
Mate, you are totally talking my language. What I love about fermented foods is they're becoming a part of everyday life for you guys at home because they're accessible everywhere. And what we're wanting to do is create fantastic gut health, and that starts with fermented foods.
Joining us now, nutritionist and food scientist who's passionate about pickles and fermented foods. Welcome, Kribben Govender. Hello.
G'day, Kribben.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us. Now, Kribben, often hear Heinzie talk about the good bacteria in fermented food. So what is fermenting? What does it mean?
Fermentation is a very ancient process that our ancestors developed. And most people don't realise things like coffee or chocolate or Vegemite or red wine, they're all forms of fermentation that...
Some of my top 4 food groups.
You've just got Joe's attention in the best way possible.
It's true.
But the basics of it is essentially using microbes like bacteria or yeast or even mould to change the culinary aspects of the product, but also to preserve the product as well.
Okay, so what does eating fermented foods do for our gut?
Well, fermented foods are amazing for the gut because they're teeming with beneficial organisms, but then they've got all these other beneficial vitamins and things like short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which are all really beneficial for gut health.
Okay, but for you, it's been bigger than that. Tell us what happened for you when you started eating fermented foods. It turned your life around.
Yeah, well, I think back about 8 years ago now, I struggled really heavily with anxiety and depression. And my journey with anxiety and depression started probably when I was a teenager, when I went on a really strong course of antibiotics. And I literally noticed that my personality had changed overnight, pretty much. Went from being really bubbly and happy to someone that was quite dark and gloomy. But then it all culminated, I was in the workforce, and as you move up in your career, the level of stress really amplifies, and I found that my life imploded on itself. And essentially I left the workplace, my marriage collapsed, I found myself in an apartment, I was away from my 3 beautiful children, and I was about to end my life. And the thing that really turned it for me was my children, just anchoring onto them to not want to leave that legacy for them. But then I really I almost MacGyvered it, and I thought, how am I going to sort out this issue with anxiety and depression that I'm suffering with? So I put my science cap on, looked at research, I found the GAPS work, Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride, Dr. Weston Price, and they, especially Natasha, talked about the connection between the gut and the brain. And seeing psychologists and psychiatrists at the time, they recommended going down a drug route, so to take a Prozac or Zoloft, but I didn't want to go down that path. So I started to look at things like fermented foods, and specifically one that changed my life was this particular product, milk.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, because there's probably people who resonate with not feeling on top of their emotions, and I think it's really important we speak openly about that. It's interesting that you bring that back to antibiotics, because we're talking about gut health here. Can you touch on how you found that link between the antibiotics and affecting your good microbiome?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very fortunate at the time that it was the early days in terms of the microbiome research. And now we've advanced quite a bit in terms of understanding of the microbiome, but your microbiome is around 40 trillion organisms that live in the gut, and a lot of them are responsible for production of neurotransmitters like GABA, serotonin.
Which is why they call it our second brain.
Exactly.
So I think what's really important for people to understand is that if you are suffering poor gut health, that's why you start to feel that change in your mood and your emotions. So you're using these fermented foods to essentially get that good gut bacteria working, healing and sealing the gut lining, and then promoting that bacteria.
Yes, absolutely. So it starts with sealing the gut lining, making sure those tight junctions are really intact. And then the next step is to introduce as much of these fermented foods, which are also rich in fibre as well.
Now, you had something here in your hand. Can you run me through what these are?
Yep, so this is milk kefir. So it's a very ancient product that's thousands and thousands of years old.
Yep.
No lab can actually make this. This is really from nature. And so all people do is they make this type of yogurt called kefir at home.
Yes.
And then all you're doing is you're adding this culture to milk, and then it ferments it into a yogurt. But the beauty is you only need to get this once. You can get it from a friend or anybody, but once you have it for life.
And you can keep passing it on to new batches, essentially. And it creates a beautiful tart flavour to that, and you don't need to add anything else to it, so there's no sugars or additives like that. Now, what about this one? So I think this is a water kefir, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of the milk kefir, you've got a very well-studied product with lots of preclinical research, and also going into clinical research on the amount of good bacteria in there. But if someone's, say, dairy intolerant, you've got another one this originates from Mexico. Again, it's an heirloom culture. You can't make this in a lab. It's just from nature.
Yeah.
And so it's great for people who are vegetarians or vegans. And all we're doing is we're using sugar and water and fermenting it. And these are very fast ferments. Like milk kefir is 24 hours and it's ready. Water kefir is ready in about 2 days.
And what's interesting, you said sugar, and there's probably people thinking, well, this is a sugary drink. It's funny, the bacteria eats and consumes that sugar, correct?
Exactly. So the end product will roughly have about 2% sugar left in it, so very minimal.
And Goodrem, you found when you started consuming fermented food, your anxiety and your mental health changed almost immediately, or?
within days, I started to notice the difference, but it's important to highlight that there was multiple things. So I increased exercise, I started meditating, I took up a Meisner acting course, I did the Alexander technique, so numerous things, but certainly fermented foods did impact how I feel. And what's really interesting, milk kefir actually comes from the word in Turkish meaning feel good. So our ancient people really knew that these things improve health and how you feel, but also it's all the neurotransmitters and GABA in it that actually make you feel good.
So do all of the fermented foods and drinks, do they do different things?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So in what way do they differ?
Absolutely. So each different type of fermented food will have a slightly different microbial profile. For instance, the ones in kefir are the ones that actually produce a lot of tryptophan. So tryptophan is like a precursor for serotonin, the feel-good hormone. And then other things like water kefir, which are not particularly well studied, but there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, and kombucha is another one, where it improves people's psoriasis or even people with IBD. And then even like sauerkraut, you've got to think there's trillions of bacteria per serve of this product. So milk kefir has about 2 trillion per cup serve. Again, there's trillions in this particular one as well.
This is a great nature's version of a probiotic, which is absolutely incredible for your gut health.
Yes.
And one thing I always like to tell people is that health starts in the kitchen. So when you truly want to be healthy and happy, get in the kitchen and you make these things from scratch and things will really, really start to transform for you.
Yeah.
Goodrem, thanks for coming in and good luck with Nourish Me Organics. Always happy to see our man behind the bar, Gerald, and I believe a big kombucha man. Is that right?
I was part of the kombucha culture, Das. There's no doubt about that. But I want to... Something that's pickling my fancy today is ginger in relation to morning sickness.
What actually causes morning sickness, GQ?
Well, first of all, you've got to be pregnant, Bianca.
Which I'm not.
But it really is nausea and vomiting whilst you're pregnant. So nausea and vomiting during pregnancy, it's a dreadful issue, and we don't really know why it happens and so many things. It could be blood pressure that moves up and down, blood sugar that moves up and down, hormones that move up and down. Not everybody gets it. Half to 2/3 of women who are pregnant. But the challenge is that it can actually last and come and go, and it can be quite debilitating.
So it can happen at any time, not just during the early stages?
Yes, pretty well. Normally, and often it's a way of people saying, well, I think I'm pregnant because I'm quite nauseous in the morning, and it can often be a sign.
So then how do you overcome it?
A few things. Vitamin B6 is the specific nausea, not so much vomiting, but nausea nutrient. So looking at B6-rich foods, and there's plenty of those. Eggs and meat of all sorts have plenty of B6. And the herb of choice is ginger. Bianca, which has got a component called 6-gingerol, works on the tummy muscles, settles nausea down. Bearing in mind that this is the sort of thing that you take all the way through. You don't just suddenly decide to take it.
So you take it the whole time.
It's a preventer as well, yeah.
So, and we know it can be really debilitating for those expected mums. So what happens if you can't stomach a pill?
Well, then you might move to a powdered combination of a pregnancy multi that you can mix with water. And then you're getting the benefits of hydration as well as the B6 ginger and other things that we know are important.
And what about dehydration? Because that can sort of change things, can't it?
And that's one of the things we look at. So small meals more often, Bianca, staying away from fatty, greasy, spicy foods, trying to minimise the smell of food, because sometimes just walking into a kitchen with the smell of food is enough to trigger the whole thing.
Right.
So they're the sorts of things we try and minimise.
Yes, and eat lots of ginger.
Yes, ginger whenever you want to.
And what about the best way expectant mums can take care of themselves?
Well, look after yourself. Small meals, hydrate well, all of those things that probably mums and grandmas can advise, good sources of advice. But it's a matter of just seeing your way through, take the B6 and ginger together. Life is good.
Thanks, GQ. I've learnt a lot today. That was the A to Z of vitamins, brought to you by NutriCare Pregma Plus, the only multi-stage soluble supplement to support your pregnancy journey.
Well, welcome back. I am just flicking through this particular book, Eat More Vegan. Congratulations, Hinesy, on releasing your 10th cookbook. You're not a vegan though, are you? But get the book out.
No, I'm not. I'm really passionate though about people eating more plants. So I like to say that this book is good for 3 people. It's good for vegans, perfect. Reducitarians, which are people who may just want to reduce their meat intake.
That's me.
Or just simply for people who want to make their fruits and vegetables taste incredible. It's been a year in the making and I've loved absolutely every minute. So I'm excited to show you a little bit of behind the scenes, a step by step from the concept to preparation to plating up for the publisher. This is the studio where it all happens, and I'll take you to the kitchen where all the cooking deliciousness comes to life. This is my cooking team, Caroline and Rach. They are the whizzes behind bringing everything together so that it is cookbook worthy. But once we've finished cooking, we've got to plate everything up, which is where this all comes into play. 3 giant trestle tables of everything from cups and saucers, glass containers, tumblers, everything you could need to style an incredible photo. And this is where the magic happens, the photography room. Right through here. This here is the cooking team, bringing things to life with the photography team. Hasselback sweet potatoes right here with the delicious herby chimichurri. It doesn't get better than that. From in the kitchen to cooking yummy food, to plating it up on styled props, to right now capturing the perfect shot. This is the best part because you get to eat it. I gotta say, eating an entire book's worth of meals is the delicious payoff to my year-long project. A cookbook is a good 12-month turnaround from the moment you sit down with your publisher to talk about the concept to the day it hits shelves. There's a number of months writing the recipes, which is a very important process to make sure that you're not repeating too many ingredients and that you're getting a good variety across the whole book. Once it's gone into that stage, it goes through the edit. Then there's the shoot. 2 whole weeks of 10 to 12 recipes each and every day with an incredible team of people alongside making it all come together. I'm not going to show you the first 11 months of the process. No one wants to see me retesting yet another recipe at 4 a.m. in the kitchen. The shoot is definitely the fun part, but there's no slacking off. Every detail will make or break my vision. We refer to this mood board, where we've got a good idea of the colours that we're going to use with the food and also the props, which is why I bring a combination of things like grey, green, different pinks, charcoal, earthy colours, so that we can pose with the different food and make the food really, really pop, which you're about to see with this delicious broccoli dish. Oh, my Julia Roberts forehead vein. The inspiration behind my new cookbook is all about getting people in the kitchen cooking with real food. Plus, I've made sure that it's friendly for gluten-free, dairy-free, refined sugar-free, plant-based, low-carb and keto. I believe if we can keep food as natural as possible, we're on our way to live healthier and happier lives. Yeah, I think so. And just for my fellow sweet tooths, I've included a healthy size chapter on desserts. Number 1 part of making a cookbook is being able to eat each and every dish after we've taken the photo. And I tell you what, eat more vegan. If this is eating more vegan, sign me up. Yeah.
Oh, Hinesy, I'm so proud of you and I'm really inspired by your passion and your knowledge. It's awesome, right?
Thank you.
And I want to get into this cookbook,
Yes.
but this is me. As a mum, if there are too many processes, I will not follow that recipe.
No.
Is it going to be something that I can do?
Absolutely. One thing I do whenever I design a recipe is to make sure anyone can do it. Because at the end of the day, I'm not a chef. I'm a passionate home cook and I'm passionate about anyone who picks this up cooking with real food with love, and that's what counts.
Oh, I've got plenty of love, but
I hope everyone loves it. You're all going home with a coffee.
And looking good, modelling those dishes too, Hinesy.
Thank you. I might have done that a few times.
So I've got a bone to pick with you, mate. We've been on this set for a lot of the year. You haven't cooked once for us. What's going on there?
Look, if you go out and grab a copy, I'll come home to your house and cook it.
Oh,
There's an
geez,
offer.
what
There
an
you go.
offer. But don't you
It's a
remember,
big family, Hines.
he brought those beautiful chocolate slices in. What were they? They were amazing.
I know, they are really good, but I tell you what, who else can cook up something really good? It is Zoe. Now, each week we see her spin on a delicious dessert. So this week we're going to use the superfood berry that is rich in antioxidants and incredibly high in taste.
I have such fond memories with my brother and I eating ice cream sandwiches, it all dripping down in the Sydney summer. But they weren't exactly the most healthy ice cream sandwich. So I thought that I'd show you a healthy version. Now, I'm going to use a hazelnut meal. I love using this flour, gluten-free, got that lovely sort of flavour of nuts in it, but also it's got protein and good fats. I'm going to also add some wholemeal flour, a little bit of coconut oil. Now, you can have this solidified or melted, but the key thing is make sure it's just not warm. A little bit of honey. Oh, look at that. And a pinch of cinnamon. I add some good quality sea salt into it. And a little bit of cold water. And the reason you use the cold water, it helps to bind the dough together. With a sharp knife, you just want to cut it into little rounds and have your tray ready to go. And I've preheated the oven to 160 degrees. Pop the ricotta into your bowl. And to give it even more of a nutritional punch, I'm going to use my Bioglang acai and berry powder. Now, it contains vitamin C, which is really important for collagen and elastin pathways. That's got a lot to do with anti-aging. Now that my cookies have cooled, it's all about filling them with this beautiful acai berry filling. Now, of course, you can eat these like an adult, or you can put heaps of filling in the middle and simply eat it like I used to as a kid. Yum.
Welcome back. So here's something you might not know. Just 1 or 2 plants in a room can improve air quality by up to 25%, Bianca.
I can be even more specific than that, Darth. In order to remove indoor pollutants, you need to have 1 medium-sized plant per 2.2 square metres.
OK, so if you look around, our poor little plants on this set are working very, very hard to cleanse the toxins from the air, but they don't really have much chance because it's a huge studio out there.
I just wish there had been more indoor plants when I was at school, because plants in the classroom have been associated with an 11 to 14% improvement in student performance in maths and science. So with the results like that, it's no wonder a passionate pair of Melbourne plant lovers are on a mission to make it easy to be green.
You can definitely have a dialogue with your plants. There's a lot of plants that will communicate to us visually. Like a peace lily will kind of droop as well. I don't know if you've ever seen it where they droop and then when they get watered, they stand up really proud.
Jackie and Alana know exactly what to say to their plants to get the very best results. They're what I call the plant whisperers.
Indoor plants are awesome on so many levels. Not only do they bring so much to an environment, into a space as well, it's really that human connection to nature. It just makes us feel good.
These two love plants so much, they've built a world around them. An emporium of indoor plants that aren't here just for their looks, but what they can actually do for you.
We definitely do need to make sure that we're getting that connection to nature. There's so many things, there's so much research that's been done lately. I don't know whether you've heard of forest bathing as well, that's come out of Japan. People really feel better in an environment that has plant life. So if you don't have the luxury of having the forest at your doorstep, bring it indoors yourself. So adding plants can be so beneficial. Even just 1 plant in each room can be really great.
Plants are so powerful. They can change your mood and even improve your concentration. And they have the incredible ability to filter out toxins in the air.
There's been studies that have shown hospital patients as well that have a view to the garden or also have plants in their hospital room have increased recovery rates than other ones who don't. There was a study done by NASA that identified key plants like devil's ivy and snake plant that really help detoxify the air. Plus, there's just so many other benefits. They're great to look at, Who doesn't want a plant in their house?
Definitely no direct sunlight for this one. It will burn in direct sunlight.
Like most people, I love a few plants around the house, but my thumbs are not that green.
We always say if we have a customer come in, and this happens a lot, where they're like, I'm just scared to have plants, I don't want to kill them. The first thing we say is everybody has killed plants, and that's how you learn. But I would say start on a good plant like a basic, maybe a devil's ivy. They're really hardy, they're really tolerant, and they're actually a really good communicator. The leaves will kind of curl in when they need water.
I don't consider indoor plants to be high maintenance. For me, they have their own natural rhythm, and once you find that, taking care of them is actually quite simple.
During summer, it might be, once a week you have to water your plants, and then in winter it might be maybe 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. But they're not too needy.
So instead of coming home just to the cat or the dog, consider the company of a lush green indoor plant buddy. Stress relief in a pot.
There is something really nice about being surrounded by plants and having that responsibility for their well-being. I know that Alana and I, we still work 1 day a week, sometimes 2, in our botanical emporium. And when I get here and I stand behind the counter, my whole body relaxes.
Oh, I love the sound of forest bathing. Like to go and lie in the shade and breathe in the air of a forest, that would be amazing.
Joe, seriously, forest bathing is such a big deal in Japan. It's basically using all 5 senses to connect with nature and clear the mind. The true believers say it has the power to counter illnesses, including strokes, gastric ulcers and depression.
So here's a random fun fact. There's a new exhibit at the Paris Zoo of what they thought was a plant, but is now a yet-to-be-defined species. It's a blob, which, believe it or not, which is some kind of mould that's related to fungi. But here's the weird thing. It has no mouth or stomach.
Okay.
But it can digest food, and you'd never guess what its favourite food is.
What?
It's oats.
Oh, that makes me feel a bit sick. I don't like the sound of that at all. But I read that its enemy is caffeine, so it's a porridge-loving, coffee-hating blob.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
What about that? From coffee and oats to the sweet smell of musical success, Delta Goodrem reveals her destiny. That's next on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. As we know, Rach is off on assignment this week, but not before catching up with her great friend and singing sensation, Delta Goodrem, who has just launched her 3rd fragrance with the very interesting name, Destiny.
Double threat Delta Goodrem has been singing to us since her days on Ramsay Street. She released her first record at just 15. Since then, she sold 8 million albums, had 9 #1 hits, and is never far from our TV screens.
Hello! How are you? Very well. How are you? Good to see you. Thank you.
Too.
No, so great. Chatting with me.
Take a seat. With 5 albums under her belt, Australia's favourite songbird has a new hobby to talk about.
Beautiful girl, congratulations on your new fragrance. Can you start by telling us a little bit about the journey that you've been on to create this?
Of course, I look at fragrance the exact same way I do with music. I look at it as a story and what do I want to share with people next. And the scents are memory-based. There's something that reminds you of a particular time, and it's another piece of connecting.
What's the process in creating a fragrance? Like, are you blindfolded in a dark room?
Pretty much. I can't see anything. It's just my senses. No, I have been very much a part of understanding notes and understanding all the different layers that go into it. It's the same, again, I equate it to music because it's the same as having the bass and then bringing in the middle, then the top notes, and it's the same as sort of creating a whole sound. It's a whole experience.
If anyone has the skill to bottle a symphony, it would be Delta. She made her first foray into fragrance in 2017.
I think when I start with the original Delta by Delta Goodrem, I wanted it to be a fragrance that was kind of in any woman's life.
She's since expanded her repertoire with the sultry Dream, a scent that can carry its wearer from day to night. And now the newly launched Destiny has turned her aromatic duo into a trio.
I think that heading into Destiny, it was going, the passionate, the intuition, the instinctive kind of sides that I wanted to sort of bottle up and it is where you are the person you're meant to be today is kind of the arc of this collection right now.
What do your fans mean to you, and what do you want this fragrance to mean to them?
I have an incredibly loyal fan base that have been my tribe my entire life. People that have grown up with me since I was a teenager. I was only very, very young when I started, and I've stayed true to who I am at all times and not sort of veered from that. And I think that my true fan base know that, and then they know that anything I do is authentically to my heart and soul, and that expands into these wonderful fragrances which are with a lot of thought and detail and all the same principles you do in any part of life.
Thanks to Rach for bringing Delta Goodrem to us, and you can see a genuine friendship and connection between those two, can't you?
Yes, and Delta Goodrem, what a superstar she is. Now tell me, Sarah Jessica Parker's fragrance is called Lovely and Delta's is Destiny. So what would your one-word signature fragrance name be, Bianca?
Well, I'm going to go with vibes. So, like, positive vibes. I try and live by that. But also I'm going to add in Hawaiian vibes. So maybe you guys will take me.
I love it.
What about you, Dars?
Well, you did just ask me this a moment ago, and I said far out. Because far out, I've got no idea what I would call it. So I think that works.
Far out?
I'm going to use 2 words and call it eat me.
Oh.
Because I'm all about food. So you want to come and eat me.
Oh, geez.
Sort of adult warning with that.
I look forward to the marketing on that one.
I think on that note, that's probably all we've got time for this week. What show would you call your fragrance?
Regret. Mostly.
Hey, that is all we've got time for this week. Bianca, thanks for coming in. It's been great to catch up with you, as always. The legend that is Bianca Chatfield. Head to thehouseofwellness.com.au for more information on anything we covered. Plus, remember to tune into our radio show every Sunday. And as always, thanks to our good friends at Chemist Warehouse. We'll see you next time.